Toyota has just detonated a shockwave across the U.S. auto market, and no one saw it coming. In a bold and unexpected move, the world's most dominant automaker is slashing prices on its full-size trucks, and the ripple effects are sending rival companies scrambling for survival. For years, Toyota trucks like the Tundra and Tacoma have carried a premium reputation, reliability, resale value, and durability. But now, Toyota isn't just relying on reputation. They're going for market dominance by undercutting competitors in the one segment that fuels America's roads and wallets: trucks. And the discounts aren't small. They're massive enough to shake Ford, GM, Ram, and even newcomers like Rivian and Tesla. What makes this move even more shocking is the timing. The U.S. auto industry is already under immense pressure. Rising interest rates, skyrocketing monthly payments, and unsold inventory piling up on dealership lots have left automakers desperate. Ford and GM dealers are offering hidden rebates, Ram has been slashing sticker prices, and EV startups are burning cash to lure buyers. But Toyota's strike is different. Instead of quietly handing out incentives, Toyota is going public, turning its discounts into a statement. It's as if they're saying, if you want a truck, why would you pay more for the competition when Toyota gives you more for less? And this isn't just about moving a few extra units. This is a calculated assault on America's truck hierarchy. For decades, Ford's F-150, Chevy Silverado, and Ram's 1500 have dominated sales charts, while Toyota's Tundra and Tacoma carved out steady but smaller slices. Now, Toyota's price cuts threaten to erode that long-standing dominance. Because let's face it, Americans love their trucks, but loyalty is tested when buyers are staring at savings of thousands of dollars. Suddenly, the guy who always swore by his F-150 is walking into a Toyota dealership, running the numbers, and realizing he can get a brand new Tundra with better reliability, lower long-term costs, and a huge discount. The real question is why now? Toyota doesn't make moves like this without a bigger strategy. Analysts believe the company is using its financial strength and massive supply chain advantage to corner the market while rivals are weak. Ford is still battling quality control disasters, GM is weighed down by EV production delays, and Stellantis is moving truck production overseas, angering loyal buyers. Meanwhile, Toyota has been stockpiling parts, optimizing factories, and preparing for a moment like this. By offering discounts now, they're forcing buyers to choose between paying inflated prices elsewhere or grabbing Toyota's deal while it lasts. And let's not forget, this isn't just about traditional gas trucks. Toyota has already teased hybrid and future electric versions of its trucks, meaning these discounts could be a way to lock in brand loyalty before the EV transition really kicks into high gear. Imagine this: a buyer gets hooked on a Tundra today because of the discount, and 5 years from now, when they're ready for a hybrid or electric truck, who do they trust? Toyota. This move isn't just about today's sales, it's about tomorrow's market dominance. But here's where the story takes a darker twist. Behind closed doors, Ford, GM, and Ram executives are in panic mode. Ford has leaned on its F-Series as the crown jewel of its empire for decades, and any threat to that dominance is a direct attack on the company's lifeline. GM, with its Silverado and Sierra, faces the same nightmare. If buyers start defecting to Toyota, their carefully balanced profit margins collapse. Ram, once the underdog that rose by offering bold styling and aggressive incentives, now finds itself being outplayed at its own game. And the timing couldn't be worse. All three Detroit giants are dealing with bloated inventories, union tensions, and a consumer base that's tired of paying record-high prices. Suddenly, Toyota's discounts look less like a promotion and more like a precision strike aimed right at their weakest points. Dealers are already reporting unusual traffic patterns. Customers who once walked in asking about an F-150 or Silverado are now cross-shopping Toyota trucks more aggressively. Some are even using Toyota's discounts as leverage, demanding that Ford and GM match or beat the price. But here's the problem: Ford and GM don't have the same flexibility. Their production costs are higher, their incentive budgets are tighter, and their debt loads are much heavier. If they slash prices to match Toyota, they risk bleeding profits. If they don't, they risk losing sales. It's a lose-lose scenario, and Toyota knows it. And the shockwaves aren't limited to the showroom floor. Investors are watching this unfold with alarm, because truck sales aren't just about volume, they're about profit. Trucks are the cash cows of the American auto industry. Every discounted Toyota Tundra sold is money ripped out of Detroit's pockets. Wall Street has long tolerated bloated EV spending at Ford and GM because trucks kept the lights on. But what happens when those truck profits start slipping away? Suddenly, balance sheets look weaker, stock prices tumble, and executives face brutal questions about strategy. What makes this even more devastating is how Toyota is positioning its move. This isn't desperation, it's offense. Toyota isn't struggling to move trucks the way Ford and GM are. Instead, they're leveraging their global scale and bulletproof reputation to pull buyers away from the competition. It's a psychological game as much as a financial one. For years, Toyota has been painted as the outsider in America's truck wars. But with these discounts, they're flipping the script, forcing consumers to rethink loyalty and making rivals look overpriced and out of touch. And let's not forget the pressure this puts on EV truck makers. Rivian, already losing money on every unit it sells, now has to convince buyers to pay a premium for an unproven brand while Toyota offers deep discounts on a trusted name. Tesla's Cybertruck, which entered the market with huge hype but limited supply, suddenly looks less revolutionary when buyers can pick up a discounted Tundra today. Toyota may not be the loudest player in the EV space, but this move reminds everyone that they don't need to rush, because while competitors fight for scraps, Toyota is quietly building long-term dominance. But here's where things get even more explosive. Reports are already trickling out from dealership floors, and the stories are jaw-dropping. Sales managers at Ford and GM locations are admitting that customers are walking in with Toyota's discounts printed out, slapping them on the desk, and asking one brutal question: why should I pay more for your truck? In many cases, dealers have no answer. Some are offering extended financing terms or throwing in extras just to keep buyers from bolting. Others are watching loyal customers, people who've bought 3, 4, even 5 trucks from the same brand, suddenly drive off the lot in a shiny new Toyota. This isn't just lost sales, it's lost loyalty, and once that's gone, it rarely comes back. Behind the scenes, the mood is tense. Ford dealers, already frustrated with high inventory levels, are furious that corporate is slow to react. GM dealers, who've been promised aggressive EV rollouts, now worry that those plans won't matter if their bread-and-butter trucks start losing ground. Even Ram, which has relied heavily on aggressive incentives in the past, is being undercut at its own game. Toyota has flipped the script, forcing rivals to either slash their own margins or watch customers walk away. And because Toyota has deeper pockets and stronger global supply chains, it can keep the pressure on for far longer than Detroit can afford. Industry insiders are calling this the most aggressive price war in trucks since the early 2000s. But the difference this time is the economic backdrop. Interest rates are at their highest in decades, families are stretched thin, and buyers are hunting for value like never before. Toyota's timing is lethal. They're striking at the exact moment when every dollar matters most to the American consumer. Instead of flashy EV promises or luxury trims with 6-figure price tags, Toyota is saying something simple: we'll give you the best deal right now. And in today's climate, that message resonates louder than anything. Meanwhile, Wall Street analysts are starting to raise red flags. Truck sales account for up to 70% of profits at Ford and GM. If those profits erode, it's not just about losing market share, it's about threatening the entire financial foundation of these companies. Some analysts are already whispering about potential credit downgrades if sales numbers slip too far. And remember, this is all before Toyota even unleashes its full hybrid lineup, which could give them an even sharper advantage as fuel costs continue to pinch American drivers. But here's the kicker: Toyota's move might not just disrupt the auto industry. It could change the entire U.S. economy in ways no one is talking about yet. If Toyota keeps pressing forward with these aggressive discounts, the fallout won't stop at dealerships or boardrooms. It could ripple straight into American towns and factories. Trucks aren't just vehicles. They're economic engines that fund entire communities. In places like Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, and Texas, truck production is the backbone of local economies. Thousands of workers depend on steady sales to keep plants running. If Ford, GM, and Ram suddenly face declining truck sales, the first place they'll cut is production. And when production slows, factories idle, shifts are reduced, and layoffs begin. That means fewer paychecks going into small businesses, fewer families able to spend, and entire towns feeling the pinch. This is why Toyota's move is so devastating. It's not just about who sells the most trucks, it's about who controls the flow of money that keeps America's industrial heart beating. If Ford or GM loses enough ground, It could trigger a chain reaction. Dealers closing, suppliers going bankrupt, and communities losing their lifelines. Meanwhile, Toyota is insulated. They have global operations, diversified supply chains, and the ability to weather short-term profit hits in order to capture long-term dominance. In other words, Toyota can play the long game, Detroit can't afford to. And then there's the political angle. Trucks aren't just popular vehicles, they're symbols of American pride. Politicians know that attacking or defending the auto industry can make or break elections. If Toyota's discounts lead to layoffs in U.S. factories, expect Washington to get involved. Lawmakers will demand answers from Ford and GM, unions will rally for protection, and there could even be calls for tariffs or subsidies to level the playing field. But the irony is that buyers won't care about politics. They'll care about the fact that Toyota is offering the better deal right now. The clash between consumer choice and political pressure could spark one of the fiercest auto debates in years. At the same time, Toyota's bold strategy exposes a glaring weakness in Detroit's approach: over-reliance on expensive trims and EV gambles. For years, automakers padded profits by pushing luxury versions of their trucks, fully loaded F-150s and Silverados with price tags soaring past $70,000 or $80,000. But with Toyota undercutting the base price, that luxury strategy collapses. Buyers who once stretched their budgets for leather seats and chrome packages are rethinking their choices. And if Toyota captures those buyers now, Detroit may never win them back. But here's the most shocking part: Toyota's discounts could be just the beginning of something even bigger. Insiders are whispering that Toyota's current wave of discounts is only phase one of a much larger strategy. The real bombshell could come when Toyota leverages these discounts as a springboard into its hybrid and electrified truck lineup. Think about it. While Ford and GM are struggling to push expensive EV trucks that most buyers can't afford, Toyota is quietly setting the stage to roll out hybrids and eventually full EVs at prices that undercut everyone else. By the time Detroit is still scrambling to make EVs profitable, Toyota could already have a loyal customer base locked in, thanks to the discounts offered today. And that's not just speculation. Leaks from Toyota insiders suggest that the company has been ramping up hybrid truck production capacity for months, preparing to flood the market when the timing is right. If that's true, then these discounts aren't just a sales tactic, they're a baited hook. Buyers take advantage of today's deals, fall in love with Toyota reliability, and when it comes time to upgrade, Toyota is waiting with a hybrid or EV option that's priced thousands below what Ford or GM can offer. It's a long-term trap that Detroit seems completely unprepared for. Meanwhile, Detroit's troubles are compounding. Ford's EV division is bleeding billions, GM is struggling to bring its Ultium platform to scale, and Ram is banking on future models that keep getting delayed. These companies are already stretched thin, juggling the expensive transition to electric while trying to keep traditional truck sales alive. Now Toyota has entered the fight with the one weapon they can't counter easily: financial stability. With mountains of cash reserves and a reputation for efficiency, Toyota can afford to play a ruthless game of patience while rivals crumble under pressure. This looming second phase also puts massive stress on the supply chain. U.S. suppliers that have tied themselves almost exclusively to Ford and GM truck platforms could face devastating cutbacks if Toyota starts grabbing market share. That means lost contracts, shuttered plants, and yet another wave of economic pain across the Midwest and South. And all of this while Toyota continues to strengthen its own supplier network, often outside of U.S. borders, making it even harder for American companies to compete. But here's where it gets even more unsettling: Toyota may not be the only one preparing to escalate this price war. There are growing signs that foreign automakers like Hyundai and even Chinese manufacturers are watching closely, ready to join the fight with their own truck entries at jaw-dropping prices. If that happens, the U.S. truck market could face a full-blown collapse unlike anything we've seen before. If Toyota's gamble works, it could open the floodgates for foreign automakers that have been circling the U.S. truck market for years, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Hyundai and Kia have already proven they can dominate with SUVs by combining sleek design, long warranties, and competitive pricing. Imagine what happens if they apply that same formula to full-size trucks while Toyota weakens Detroit's grip. Then there's the bigger, more disruptive threat: Chinese automakers. Companies like BYD and Great Wall Motors have been quietly building trucks and SUVs that sell in huge numbers overseas. With government backing and ultra-low production costs, they could undercut everyone, even Toyota, if they decide to push into the U.S. market. And don't forget, China has already conquered the EV battery supply chain. That means if they roll out electric trucks at bargain basement prices, Detroit doesn't stand a chance. Even Toyota would struggle to keep up with that level of price aggression. The only thing stopping Chinese automakers right now are tariffs and political roadblocks, but if America's appetite for cheaper trucks grows, and it will, pressure could mount to allow them in. Once that happens, the truck wars wouldn't just be about Ford versus Toyota. It would become a global battlefield, and Detroit could end up the biggest casualty. Dealerships are terrified of this scenario. Many U.S. dealers depend on trucks to keep their lights on, and if multiple foreign players flood the market, margins collapse overnight. That could push smaller dealerships out of business entirely, especially in rural areas where trucks make up the majority of sales. At that point, it's not just an industry issue, it's a cultural one. Trucks have always been tied to American identity, work ethic, and lifestyle. Seeing foreign automakers dominate that space would represent more than lost sales. It would feel like a national defeat. But here's the kicker: this foreign competition isn't years away. It's already knocking on the door. Hyundai's Santa Cruz was just the opening shot, a test to see how U.S. buyers respond to a non-Detroit pickup. Chinese automakers are aggressively scouting partnerships with U.S. distributors. And if Toyota proves that undercutting Detroit works, you can bet others will follow with even more aggressive tactics. In other words, the price war we're seeing today could be just the warm-up for something much more destructive. And as shocking as all of this sounds, there's one more layer to the story. Because if Detroit loses control of the truck market, the fallout could spread far beyond autos and start shaking the very foundation of the U.S. economy itself. If Detroit loses control of the truck market, the damage won't just stay inside the auto industry. It'll ripple outward, destabilizing entire sectors of the U.S. economy. Trucks aren't just vehicles. They're tied to industries that keep America running. Start with steel. Every full-size truck requires tons of it, and domestic steel mills rely heavily on contracts from Ford, GM, and Ram. If truck sales fall and production slows, those mills see reduced demand almost overnight. That means fewer shifts, lower output, and potentially thousands of steelworkers facing layoffs. The very backbone of American manufacturing, the steel belt, would feel the blow. Then there's energy. Trucks are some of the most fuel-thirsty vehicles on the road, and millions of gallons of gasoline and diesel are sold because of them. If Toyota's discounts push buyers toward more fuel-efficient hybrids, or if foreign competitors rush in with cheaper EV trucks, demand for oil could slump in ways energy companies aren't prepared for. Gas stations, refineries, and even state governments that rely on fuel taxes would suddenly be facing shrinking revenues. This wouldn't just be an auto story anymore, it would become an energy story. And it doesn't stop there. The housing industry, one of the most overlooked sectors tied to truck sales, could also take a hit. Contractors, construction workers, and small business owners often depend on trucks as essential work tools. If they switch to Toyota's discounted models or even foreign imports, that spending shift affects dealerships, lenders, and insurance companies that have long relied on Detroit's trucks as guaranteed business. Banks that finance auto loans would also feel the sting if resale values on Ford and GM trucks start plummeting because buyers see Toyota as the safer bet. The domino effect could be brutal. Fewer trucks sold by Detroit means fewer union jobs, fewer parts ordered, fewer paychecks feeding into local economies. That, in turn, hits retail, restaurants, and real estate in industrial towns. And once those communities start weakening, it creates a ripple that spreads nationally. All of this triggered by Toyota pulling one lever: massive discounts at just the right time. But here's the haunting question: what if this isn't just about trucks at all? What if Toyota is testing a strategy that could eventually extend to SUVs, sedans, and every other segment of the U.S. market? If Toyota can crush Detroit's dominance in trucks with aggressive discounts, what's stopping them from expanding the same playbook across the entire lineup? Imagine Toyota slashing prices on its SUVs, where models like the Highlander and 4Runner already enjoy a reputation for reliability. Families shopping for a 3-row SUV would suddenly look at Toyota not just as the safe choice, but the affordable one. That could steal sales straight out of the hands of Ford's Explorer, Chevy's Traverse, and Jeep's Grand Cherokee. Once those segments start slipping, the financial bleeding for Detroit would multiply. And then consider sedans. While Ford has abandoned the car market almost entirely, Toyota still owns it with the Corolla and Camry, two of the best-selling cars in history. If Toyota decides to cut prices in this segment, It won't just dominate, it will completely eliminate what's left of the competition. GM and Stellantis wouldn't even have an answer, because they've already surrendered those markets. That leaves Toyota in a position to monopolize sedans, forcing millions of cost-conscious buyers into their showrooms without a fight. The SUV space would be even more dangerous for Detroit. Models like the RAV4 and Highlander already outsell many of their American rivals, and that's without huge discounts. If Toyota undercuts pricing there, it could spark a migration of suburban families and young professionals away from Ford Escapes, Chevy Equinoxes, and Dodge Durangos. And unlike Detroit, Toyota has hybrid versions of almost every SUV ready to go, giving them an unbeatable 1-2 punch, cheaper upfront costs and better long-term fuel savings. But here's the real nightmare scenario. If Toyota proves this aggressive discounting works, it could set a precedent that permanently reshapes consumer expectations. Buyers may start refusing to pay inflated sticker prices altogether, demanding bigger discounts as the new norm. That would force every automaker, not just Detroit, into a race to the bottom on pricing. Margins would collapse, profits would evaporate, and weaker companies could be pushed into bankruptcy. And through it all, Toyota, with its massive cash reserves and efficiency, could survive while rivals crumble. Yet the most unsettling part is this. Toyota has never been a company that moves without a decades-long vision. Which raises the question, are these discounts just a short-term play to grab sales, or are we watching the opening moves of a carefully designed strategy to dominate the entire U.S. auto market for a generation to come? Toyota doesn't gamble, it plans. Every major move the company makes is calculated years, sometimes decades, in advance. So why drop this discount bombshell now? Insiders believe Toyota chose this exact moment because the U.S. auto industry is more vulnerable than it's been in a generation. Ford and GM are drowning in EV spending, their debt loads are ballooning, and their dealer networks are bloated with unsold inventory. Ram, once a rising star, is losing momentum after shifting production overseas. Consumers are exhausted from years of record-high prices, rising interest rates, and monthly payments that feel like second mortgages. In other words, Detroit is on its knees, and Toyota just kicked the door wide open. This is classic Toyota strategy. Strike hardest when rivals are weakest. They know buyers are frustrated, and frustration is fertile ground for defection. By slashing truck prices, Toyota isn't just selling vehicles, they're planting seeds of loyalty that will sprout years from now. A customer who drives home in a discounted Tundra today isn't just a one-time sale. That customer is far more likely to buy a Toyota SUV for the family, a Toyota sedan for the kids, and eventually a Toyota hybrid or EV when the time comes. That's not short-term profit, that's generational conquest. And here's where Toyota's hidden strength comes into play. Unlike Detroit, which has poured billions into chasing EV hype, Toyota took a slower, more cautious approach, building hybrids, refining batteries, and waiting for the right moment. Critics mocked them for being too conservative, but now that the EV market is stumbling under high prices and weak demand, Toyota looks brilliant. They can pivot at will, dominate gas trucks today with discounts, hybrids tomorrow with efficiency, and EVs later when the technology and infrastructure finally make sense. No other automaker has that kind of flexibility. Behind the scenes, Toyota executives reportedly see this as a once-in-a-generation opportunity. A perfect storm where consumer pain, Detroit's missteps, and Toyota's financial muscle all align. They know moments like this don't come often, and when they do, you either hesitate and miss it, or you go all in and reshape the industry forever. Toyota has chosen to go all in. But here's the question hanging over everything. If Toyota succeeds in using discounts as the spearhead of this strategy, what happens next for Ford, GM, and Ram? Will they fight back with their own cuts, risking financial ruin, or will they hold their ground and watch Toyota steal their most loyal customers? The U.S. auto industry is standing at a crossroads. Toyota's bombshell discounts have exposed the cracks in Detroit's armor, and the fallout is only just beginning. Will Ford, GM, and Ram dig deep and fight back, or will Toyota's ruthless strategy rewrite the future of America's most profitable market? One thing is certain, this isn't just about trucks anymore. It's about control, dominance, and the survival of entire companies. The battle lines are drawn, the price war has begun, and the next moves could decide the fate of the American auto industry for a generation.